Hello everyone, the birds are chirping and today we have yet another AIO PC review for you. This is the JOI AIO 5350 and it brings quite a lot of interesting features. So let's get right into it with the birds chirping, of course. Now this AIO PC, I think we should first start off by talking about the monitor side of things, because this is a 23.8-inch IPS LCD screen with 1080p in resolution at 60Hz, and its color accuracy, yes, we did take out our colorimeter and test it. It's about 84% sRGB color gamut coverage. I would say it's a pretty decent screen overall, but definitely not the most color accurate one out there. But that's okay, because it's still very serviceable if you just wanna, let's just say, watch YouTube videos, Netflix, something like that, because colors are actually looking pretty good with my own eyes. And this AIO PC is also kind of weird because it doesn't have an OSD menu. You can adjust its brightness by pressing at these two buttons here. So down and up, yeah, they are literally buttons for you to adjust the brightness. And what's inside the JOI AIO 5350 is an Intel Core i5-9400, 8GB of DDR4 RAM and also 512GB of SSD storage. Now, I'm not going to talk much about its performance here because with its specs, it's definitely going to be enough for office work, but it's not enough for gaming because it doesn't have a dedicated GPU. And with that said, since it's meant for office use, you got a lot of IO ports as well. So by looking at the front there, we got a 3.5mm combo audio jack, two USB 3.0 Type A ports, and then another USB 3.0 Type C port. This is very convenient if you just want to plug stuff in real quick. That port is right there for you. And I would say this is one of the most logical place to put the ports in for an AIO PC. And at the back bottom part of this monitor here, we also have another slew of ports. These ports right here, I don't think many of you will actually do a reach around to plug it in because it's kind of not convenient. So yeah, most of the time I'll also be using the ports at the front. And one thing that's special about this AIO PC is this. Yes, it has built-in webcam and microphone. I mean, it's not the best of quality, but it's serviceable. Have a sample here. Hello everyone, like I mentioned earlier, the quality of this webcam is not entirely the best, but I also don't know why my face is zoomed in so much. So yeah, I'm actually sitting like I'd say a good meter away from the webcam, and yet it's still zoomed right into my face. Yeah. Okay. Now with all of those said, here comes the interesting thing. The JOI AIO 5350 here isn't an ordinary AIO PC, I would say. It's kind of a hybrid between a laptop and also a desktop. Because at the back here, you can even wall mount it because it has VESA mount. And I would advise you to do so because this base here, it has a really sharp base, and I think you can literally murder someone if you want to by using only this stand right here. But that aside though, if you choose to wall mount this thing, you will have to take out this neck part of the monitor here, this little shaft. To take it out, you will have to remove quite a lot of things from the AIO PC, to which we will segue into the part where we literally dismantle this whole thing. Because this AIO PC, in terms of performance and everything else, it's not really that fancy, but once we get inside the AIO PC, things get a lot more interesting because there's just two latches on the neck part here. So once you unlock it, this entire back piece of the AIO PC slides off, revealing everything that's inside the AIO PC that you can literally upgrade yourself. But the first thing that we see here is a huge metal plate. We can remove this huge metal plate by removing a total of 4 screws, one on each corner, but unfortunately one of the screws were too tight and it was spinning the screw post instead of the screw, so I had to get creative with a needle nose plier and unscrew that. So after removing the metal plate, this is where we can actually unscrew the monitor stand's neck because it's just attached to the metal plate. And if you don't want to do that, we'll just leave that aside. And now we get full access to the entire motherboard. And right here we can see a few upgrade paths if you want to, because We have a total of 2 SATA ports. One of them is already in use for the included 512 gigs SATA 3 SSD. Yes, they're using a SATA 3 SSD. Don't know why, because there's also another M.2 SSD slot right on the motherboard, which is unused. So if you got another M.2 SSD, slot it in and then you can utilize that as well. But the second SATA port though, I don't know if you can use it or not, because I don't see any space for you to actually mount an additional 2.5-inch SATA drive in the AIO PC itself. But yeah, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but there's no official method for you to mount it. But anyway, if 8 gigs of RAM is not enough for you, you can actually upgrade it as well, because there's another sodium slot that is just unutilized. So you can just buy another 8 gigs of RAM, slot it in, and then it will work. You can even upgrade it to 32 gigs of RAM if you want to. So yeah. And let's not forget about the Intel Core i5-9400, because this is literally a desktop chip inside an AIO PC. So you can actually swap this chip to something else, maybe a Core i7-9700K, something like that. And maybe this AIO PC can even handle it as well, because there is some thermal headroom available, even though this cooler isn't that beefy after all. But the major hurdle here is actually the power supply, because to power up this entire AIO PC, including the monitor right here, it's only a 120 watt power supply. So if you want to upgrade to an Intel Core i7, for example, I don't think it's gonna have enough power. But with that said, I don't even see a reason for you to upgrade to an Intel Core i7, because the i5-9400 is still a very powerful chip for just office work. And overall, for the price of 2,999 ringgit, the JOI AIO 5350 is actually a very good AIO PC. I mean, you get a lot of upgrade paths, convenient port placement, and you also get a free wired keyboard and mouse set if you buy from Glue. But my only complaint here is that when the components inside the AIO PC retires, you can't actually reuse the monitor, because the HDMI and DisplayPort ports on this AIO PC is actually for output and not input. So yeah. And back to the question of who should actually buy an AIO PC like this. Well, the same concept applies. If you want to get a laptop but you don't plan to bring it outdoors or even move it away from the same table, then an AIO PC is an obvious choice. And also for officers or receptionists, those kind of use cases, yes, AIO PC is also very good for those purposes, because it saves space, and also it has an intrusion sensor inside this AIO PC, and also a Kensington lock, so it can prevent theft. And I think that's it. This JOI AIO 5350 is kind of a standard PC in an AIO form, but what's amazing here is the upgradability that you can do to this AIO PC. And yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.